Any health-related information on the following show provides general information only. Content presented on any show by any host or guest should not be substituted for a doctor's advice. Always consult your physician before beginning any new diet, exercise, or treatment program.
Welcome to Accelerated Health Radio and TV. I'm your host, Sarah Banta. I'm a health coach, natural supplement expert, and a busy mom of 3 teenagers. I believe your body does want to and is capable of rebuilding and healing itself, regardless of what chronic diseases you may have. And I'm here for you to answer your questions and bring you innovative and cutting-edge technology and health solutions to empower you in your ability to reach your optimal state of health. Today, my guest will be talking about individualized nutrition and how some of the wrong healthy foods and the wrong ways to work out may be causing you weight gain, hormonal imbalances, and keeping the body from detoxing in the proper way. But if your physical body is functioning at a low level, it's hard to have the energy mentally or to raise your frequency or vibration and heal yourself. Whether it's overcoming anxiety and depression, losing weight, or detoxing the body in the proper way, and even increasing that level of frequency in life, you need a strong physical foundation of health in order to gain the willpower to make the bigger changes in life. If you're new to following me, I specialize in helping you get there. You can find my health articles, my cutting-edge natural supplements, devices, and protocols at acceleratedhealthproducts.com. Accelerated Health Products is the sponsor of the show, so as you support my website, I'm able to bring you more cutting-edge content and guests to this show. First, I want to talk about some tools you can use to help with your mental health, physical health, and literally live your best life. The goal is to improve mitochondrial health, increase energy at the cellular level so the neurons are firing. And we are into reversing age in body, mind, and spirit, not just anti-age. The first supplement is the supplement that turned my son's life around at the age of 9 when he was diagnosed with leukemia. That 9-year-old boy is a healthy 20-year-old boy, not been on antibiotics since he was 9, and neither have his 2 sisters nor my husband or I, because of the accelerated silver. It is enhancing your immune system's ability to devitalize those foreign pathogens, including viruses, bacteria, fungus, and parasites. And if your immune system is bombarded with fighting pathogens, it can't simultaneously engage in those anti-aging mechanisms that we want it to, or even those autoimmune issues. By keeping your immune system strong, the body engages in those anti-inflammatory processes, leading to optimal health. And it's enhanced with scalar frequencies to increase its efficacy. No other silver has this. Here it is, super easy to take, tastes like water. Your kids will love it as well. The second is accelerated keto. What is so different about this? It flips you into fat burning mode within 30 minutes, and your body taps into its own fat stores for energy right away. You feel great physically and mentally with that amazing energy, and you feel like, oh my God, I can do this right now. Now, we're going to talk with our guest about some of us who are not meant to eat a high-fat ketogenic diet. That does not mean you can't use the accelerated keto. It kicks you in that keto state. You can intermittent fast, focus on a high wild animal protein diet, healthy proteins, low carb, and utilize the fat depending on your DNA. That will increase that ATP production significantly in the mitochondria, which means you're getting more true cellular energy. Additional ingredients in the accelerated keto helps break down the saturated fats into unsaturated fats, and they're easier for the body to utilize and convert into ketones. So when you're fasting, the body fat is more readily available to burn for energy. You don't have that lethargy that happens when you're trying to switch fuel systems. And because of this property, accelerated keto also is able to defat the liver. And if you know me, me, you know I love my liver. Our livers are where all the action happens. It's where the fat burning happens. It's where the conversion from T4 to T3 and your thyroid health and your metabolism are controlled. If that liver is clogged with all those stones, nothing's going to work. This is why I take people through liver flushes at least 3 to 4 times a year. The more a person's liver is defatted and unclogged, it's easier for the liver to function in all of the areas, including increased mitochondrial biogenesis. Also, accelerated keto has other factors in there that prevents muscle wasting, increases the digestive fire, and just makes everything work that much better. Next is the accelerating iodine. Iodine is not just for your thyroid. It is needed for every 100 trillion cells in the body. 100 trillion cells. So you know that iodine is needed for that metabolism. And the number one reason for mitochondrial failure, which most people and practitioners don't know, is iodine deficiency. Also, the number one reason for depression is iodine deficiency. Thyroid hormones must attach to the mitochondria as well as the nucleus of the cell. They all have thyroid hormone receptors. That is why iodine is so pertinent to our health. Intracellularly, iodine produces energy. Extracellularly, meaning outside the cell, iodine is an antioxidant, anti-allergenic. It's detoxifying, vasodilating, autoimmune suppressing. It induces that awesome thing called apoptosis, which is the programmed natural death of cells. And sufficient iodine is in all tissues, needs to help or helps produce 36 ATP. Now, that is 18 times what a normal cell would have. We are increasing that true cellular energy by 18 times. You add that in to the accelerated keto, it increases ATP production by at least 5 times, and the synergy is magic. Your energy physically and mentally skyrockets. And accelerated iodine also helps improve that metabolism and the physical energy by supplying the necessary iodine for your thyroid hormones. It is the only monoatomic iodine which has 100% bioavailability. Most other iodines are toxic and they only have 10 to 20% absorption. It's also enhanced with those scalar frequencies to detox the cells from heavy metals and radiation. You follow that acceleridine with the accelerated ancient salt, and it is essential to have that emulsifying salt and minerals, not only to stimulate digestion, but to hydrate the cells when you're fasting and when you're not. But it's not like any other salt. Most salts are stripped away of all of the essential minerals except for sodium, and that's why you get puffy in the face or you have edema. And they also are full of microplastics. So when people say, well, I'm getting my iodine from salt, well, you're getting a lot of microplastics with that as well. And the iodine is probably only absorbing maybe 10 to 20%. Well, with this salt, it is it helps pull out the positively charged toxins, parasites, and undigested fats. When you are nauseous and you put just a little on your tongue, it helps with the nausea, it helps with your blood sugar. It also helps with digesting those fats, and it is enhanced with scalar frequencies as well to help reorganize the DNA, which we will be talking about today. You can also use the energy enhancer patches, the X49 patch, the X39 patch. These are all stem cell activation patches to increase the ATP production, to increase fat burning, muscle building, which, as we know, after we turn 40, men and women have a hard time keeping that muscle mass on. We also need to pay attention to our bone density. These will literally reset your genes. We're going to be talking about genes today. So how would it be to actually have a body and a set of genes like your 20-year-old version of yourself? You got away with a lot more, better detox, better hormones, less aches and pains, more strength in the gym, more vitality in the bedroom and out. All of those things happen with these stem cell activation patches. I give more tips and tools through my free group coaching on Telegram. You can join with the link below. Like I said, there's no downside. It's all free. And you can email me through the website, sarahbantahealth.com. The difference between me and any other group coaching is I provide the most cutting edge frequency enhanced supplements that work synergistically with each other, and your body doesn't experience those flu-like symptoms. You truly do feel great day one. Leave a comment below if you're interested, or check it out on the website, sarahbantahealth.com. Now to the good stuff. Dr. Lois Nahirney is the president and CEO of dnaPower, Inc., and she has revolutionized preventative healthcare by empowering people to make smarter diet, fitness, and health decisions based on their unique genetic makeup. She has identical twins, and she doesn't know this, but I come from a family of identical twins adopted from Vietnam, and one is transgender, which has led to her fascination in DNA. So I want her to tell us the rest of the story. Welcome, Lois. How are you today?
Hi, you're wonderful. Thanks so much, Sarah. Delighted to be with you.
I am really excited to have you here. Any of my clients and my listeners know that I have tried the vegan diet, the vegetarian diet, the carnivore diet, the paleo diet, the keto diet. And what I've come across is that Sarah needs to eat for Sarah. It is all about the DNA, and we are all different. And in my family of 5, we all have different profiles. There are some very similar commonalities, but like I would say, certain foods may cause me gut issues and my husband headaches, right? But it's all coming from the same source. So I want to first start out with why you got into this and what's your story?
Well, I think lots of us who've ended up in this field came here because we had some poor health or chronic health issues. So I got sick. I was a corporate executive traveling around the world. I had adopted twins. I was on boards, and I started, I've always had incredible energy and I look pretty healthy on the surface, but I started to get sick. And I had terrible periods. I was bleeding heavily, which gave me anemia. I had chronic fatigue, restless leg syndrome, where your limbs vibrate at night, which affects the sleep. And the one that was the scariest for me was shortness of breath. And I couldn't understand why I couldn't pull a full breath. Why couldn't I'd have to try and gulp air. And, I just couldn't figure out what was happening. So when you go to the doctor, you're sent to specialists. So I spent years going to specialists, asthma specialists, respirologist specialists for the breathing. I went to gynecologists for the bleeding issues. I was sent to an oncologist because we couldn't figure out what was happening, or to have a discussion about whether there might be cancer. So I did a full body MRI because we couldn't find any reasons why I was sick. And it actually culminated in me going to the doctor on a Friday with the kids, with a babysitter and my husband out of town, and saying, I just feel awful. Something like my body wants to die. And, they had just gotten some results from my blood work. My iron was at 0. He said, get to the hospital now. And I was put into Emerge with 2 days of blood transfusions to keep my organs and things from shutting down. And you go, how can that be when I generally have been healthy all my life. I've been active. I try to eat reasonably well. And all these doctors didn't have any solutions. Shortly after that, I was getting iron injections that wasn't working, and a few other things just to keep going. I was at my grandmother's birthday, and my cousin, who's a 3-time Canadian bodybuilding champion, Carmen Tachiniak, said, you got to try this new DNA thing. I'm involved with this leading edge company. It was one of the first in the world at the time, looking at how you can use DNA for diet, fitness, and health. And her pitch, though, was actually because I had adopted kids, saying, you really need to find out about your adopted kids. I hadn't really talked about my health issues. So I sign up, and we send in, our swabs, get the results back. And I learned a ton about my kids, some really, really important information. But the shocker for me was seeing that I have genetic variations and weaknesses regarding B9 or folate, and some of the Bs, and the MTHFR and methylation genes specifically. And that made me think, well, I wonder if it's as simple as supplementation, because when I traveled, I would super supplement and feel better. but I never ever took any supplements. So I just started taking complex vitamin Bs. I discovered in my results that folate is specifically my issue, and it deeper than the other ones, probably why I couldn't get pregnant. And within 2 weeks, all my health issues were gone. And I was like blown away because it felt so good to feel good again after several years. And it changed my life. And I ended up then getting involved with the company, became the CEO, took over the company. And so, I just wanted to bring this knowledge to the world because I couldn't believe that nutrition and micronutrients actually could completely solve my problems. And so that's how I ended up here.
You just gave me the chills, because the fact that you were infertile, or you thought, right? And so many women are suffering from that right now. And even me, I had PCOS, which no doctor ever told me that the number one cause for PCOS is insulin resistance. And I was on a high sugar, low fat diet at the time. So go wonder. And I could easily get pregnant after I found this all out and after my years of being done with being pregnant. But the fact that these answers are in our DNA and what you're doing, and it was a simple supplementation that could have turned your life around. Not that we're saying that you would want to change anything ever, but for the hope for all the other women out there and men, because I know infertility is on a huge rise right now with everything that's going on, that just gives such relief. And you and I both are wanting to give people their power back over their health. And not that Western medicine there's not a place for it, but to give a person that power back is so empowering as far as their health goes, whether it's supplement or just tweaking their lifestyle and the way they eat, the way they supplement, the way they work out, just to get those answers and live more optimally. So why don't we start first with just the basic definition of DNA?
Yeah. So deoxyribonucleic acid. So we all learned that somewhere about grade 9 science, but it is one of those ones that's tricky to say. We all know we have the double helix, and our DNA is about, interestingly, 99.8% the same. And so what we look at is the variations. It's actually the 0.2% that are different between people. And that gives us a wonderful way to study and research what these individual genes are doing. And we focus on preventative health. So the genes related to something you can do something about. And so we focus on how do we learn what your body's roadmap is, your DNA is, related to diet, fitness, and general health. And so part of that is because while DNA is your roadmap, what affects it is epigenetics. It impacts how your DNA expresses itself. So you can have your DNA, which stays the same all your life. You only do this testing once because it doesn't change, but your DNA, even though it might be the same at age 2 or age 92, is just incredibly impacted by epigenetics, which means on top of. And epigenetics is the sum total of diet and your nutrition and your supplements, your exercise, your sleep, your stress, and the toxins that are in your environment. And I would add also about your mental health and your frequency and your spirit and your approach, because all of those dimensions can affect the expression of your genes. And so what we're trying to do with this DNA testing is say, how about getting, a picture of the roadmap of your DNA? Because where it's weak is where you're more likely to have health issues over time. Your body wants to move into that. It moves in the direction of where it's got some of those weaknesses. And what you want to do is when you learn this, you kind of learn 5 or 10 things that you can do to avoid that. So it's kind of like you've got a roadmap, you're in your car, you're driving along. And if you know where the potholes are, you're not going to drive straight into them. So if you know that certain vitamins are your issue, then that's something you should be focused on. If you learn that carbs or fats are not your friend, then that's your unique body. You want to be operating according to that. So that's what the beauty of this is that it, instead of having to figure it out in a very complicated way over time, this is kind of the first foundational piece of information you can have that gives you the ballpark of what your body is going to be dealing with from a genetic perspective.
I just want to touch on a couple things in my own family and my own experience is one of, what works for me, I was putting on my kids. And I am high into protein, and definitely my body can't digest fat very well. So I don't load on the fats, and I keep my carbs low. Well, my kids were doing that as well. But my one daughter, she just was not thriving mentally, physically, didn't feel well, always bloated, not eating any carbs. She loved nuts. She ate the proteins. She was doing all of this. But what we found was her epinephrine and her cortisol levels were so high just due to social and school and all of these other things going on, that actually eating carbs lowered her blood sugar. And she needed to eat way different than what she was eating, almost the opposite. And I seriously am telling her, do you need to go to therapy for me like trying to ruin your life and telling you all the wrong things to eat? But she's forgiven me. But it like I said, all 5 of us in my family have different responses to the different foods. And I think we will all agree, we all need to get rid of the processed seed oils, the refined sugars, the soda, the alcohol, at least keep it in moderation. And these foods and what we're doing are affecting not just our stomachs and our gut, but they're affecting our hormones and our detoxification pathways. And the other thing I was going to mention as an example is I was eating low carb vegetables like cauliflower and broccoli and cabbage, and I was retaining a ton of water and very bloated. And what I found out was I can't eat those vegetables. I don't have a sulfur, I have a detoxification issue with sulfur vegetables. And as soon as I let those go, bam, all of that water just went away. And I felt amazing. It wasn't about the calories. It wasn't about the fat or the carbs. It was just about my body didn't work with those certain healthy vegetables. And so this is why I love what you're doing, because it gives that clue into someone's health. You mentioned your issue with B vitamins and methylation. Can you describe or define what methylation is? Because this is an issue that actually more people than not have. It's not very uncommon.
It is not uncommon. So the MTHFR genes are in about 30 or so percent of people. And so that affects your Bs, and it affects the ability for the body to methylate, particularly on the B12. And methylation, really just on a simplistic basis, is just helping your cells use the energy the way that they should and support DNA synthesis and a number of the foundational body processes. And so really it's just, your body just can't do what it is. You talk about, about various things that your cell is trying to do. And that's what we need to be doing. And so for me, I just didn't have, I actually take quite high supplementation in the complex B area, specifically on the B9s or the folate as well. And again, that just sort of supports that process, allows my body to do what it needs to.
Awesome. And you do talk about the importance of supplementation. This is something that a lot of people say, well, you should be able to get everything you want and need from food. And that was the truth years and years ago. But our soils are depleted. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of supplementation?
Yeah, I'm a huge believer. I mean, the more you get into this, the more you discover actually how weak our food sources are now. It is not the food we had 50 years ago. It's not the food that our grandparents had. The soil is weaker. The GMOs have affected, and the herbicides and pesticides have affected the organisms in the soil. Our foods have anywhere from 20 to 80% less of the nutrition in them, our vegetables and fruits, than they did long ago. And when you GMO, it affects your gut's ability to be able to absorb it. You get more of the leaky gut and other issues. So it just goes on and on. Plus, you then add in the toxicity factors of things that are in our environment. And so just from that basis, I actually believe everybody should be doing supplementation. And I was somebody who did not, and ended up in hospital and on a whole different, completely changed journey because I discovered how important it was. The second thing to do with that, though, is like, this is a quick report for, it's in red and green, and this is the vitamin page. And where it's red means you do not have the genes that manage that particularly well. So in this case, this person has a B6, a B12, a vitamin D issue. We know in North America, we are often vitamin D deficient. It is a common deficiency. And so if you know where you've got weaker genes, the odds are you probably need even more support in those areas. And often we do guess, again, oh, this is the thing that is the latest and greatest and sounds really good. And often there's wonderful, truth around that. But it's wonderful when you can get your personal roadmap and be able to see, oh, okay, interesting. Oh, I'm also subject to iron deficiency. So I need to be more careful about, am I doing animal products? How do I get the iron in my body? Do I have the bees to support the iron? And how is that methylation and other things working? So that's the whole nutrition and vitamin piece, which is fantastic. And then I've got, also the macronutrients and the health piece, which I can talk to on detox, methylation, hormones, etc., because we look at all of those factors too.
What's great is my listeners have heard me talk about the Genius Insight app, which is on my phone. And this is a scan that does a scan of my body through my voice on a daily basis. So I can plug into this device my results from your program, what my genetics are, but then on a daily basis say, well, okay, do I need more vitamin D? Am I getting it? Am I sufficient in it now, today, real time? So it takes your genetics from what you are doing, and then you can actually test on a daily basis what you need, where you're suffering, and maybe it actually is more energetic and mental, that you have a mental block against fitness goals or weight loss goals or detox goals. It's really interesting how all of those things can kind of play in as well. So that's just interesting if someone wanted to really take a look into what their health is from a genetic standpoint, and then for a real-time standpoint. And there are days when my scan will say, stay away from fish. You need to eat more of the bison or the lamb, and then vice versa. Or you are really in need of iodine today, or you're really low on your B vitamins, and it's real time. So it's kind of cool that you could take both aspects and they complement each other. So right now we're going to take a short commercial break, and we will be right back learning more about how the dnaPower test works and what the results are like. Welcome back to Accelerated Health Radio and TV. I'm here with Dr. Lois Nahirney, and we're talking all things DNA. Lois, what I love about your test is, yes, we get the vitamins and the nutrients that we need to focus on, but the fitness. I think this is really interesting. You hear about a lot of people that say, God, I could run 10 miles. Do not put me in a gym. I hate lifting weights. What's interesting, and I'm super excited to get my results, is I am kind of hybrid. I'm really curious to see where my results would show. But can you talk about the test in general? I want to go through each part, but talk about the DNA fitness.
Sure. So the fitness, we're no surprise, we're all set up differently. And so what we're looking at for the first thing in the DNA fitness test is, are you set up with more endurance genes or more power genes? And that sort of affects which you prefer doing. You can be a balance of both, and some of the genes are mutually exclusive when you get into the world-class athletes. Like a sprinter is not set up for endurance, and vice versa, an endurance person is not set up for the power and the lifting or the sprinting. And if you know that, you actually can gear your workouts around that. So we take a look at, your preferences on exercise. We look at muscles, ligaments, tendon strength. So you know where you might have injury, what level of recovery time you might need, at how well you metabolize while you're working out, and the cardiovascular areas, stroke and cardiovascular risk, so that you know whether you've got genes that could put you at some risk in doing a power workout. So when we're looking at that, what people will find is, I don't know. I used to go to the gym, and I had definitely a coach who was a power person, and it would be push to fatigue. And I just think, oh my God, I just do not want to go back there again. And that's because I'm an endurance gal. And so you give me light weights and longer sets, I'm happy as a duck, and I get much better results from my body because that's the way my body is set up. So the great thing is, if you're working with a trainer, you show them your results and you go, see, I'm an endurance or I'm a power person, and see my muscles get tired or need more recovery, or I need longer sets, different weights, or some people, we can see if they need to eat before working out because they don't have access as easily to the nutrients that they need while they're working out. And we'll look at VO2 max, of course. And so those are things that you can find out, which just help you gear your workout for you personally. It helps for, athletes. We work with lots of athletes who are trying to find that edge on what can they do slightly differently that really helps work so beautifully with their unique body.
Well, I'm super excited to see what my results would be. And I'm also super excited to see what my daughter's would be, because she was the kid that was asthmatic, allergies, anemia. I could not get her to ride her bike around the block. And now she has committed to USC to row for the school and crew. So you take a girl that had a genetics, she's still anemic, and we still haven't quite figured that puzzle out. However, she's now in an extremely endurance heavy sport and doing great. So it'd be really interesting to see her results as well. But let's talk about diets. Yeah. What is this test going to tell us about the different diets that are right for you?
Well, I mean, you talked about it at the beginning. You've tried every diet, and in the end, it's the diet for Sarah is the one that works, and that there are different diets for your family and for your kids. And so, we all know there's no one size fits all diet. And yet we in large numbers will rush out to try the latest one because we are struggling with weight or with feeling our best or having lots of energy. And so by doing the DNA test, you learn your macronutrient profile. So how are your genes set up for carbs, fats, proteins, insulin, cholesterol? And when you know that, you can see, oh, am I better on a balanced diet? Should I be on a low carb? Should I be on a low fat? It's right there for you. I mean, essentially in green and red, this one would be somebody who can't do carbs, but is great on a keto diet because the fats are all green. And so we've worked with people, because keto has been probably the bigger, was big over the last number of years, who've made themselves incredibly sick on these diets because they absolutely did not have the keto genes or the fat genes and were getting fatty liver disease. And I love how you talk about, clearing the liver. It's just so imperative. So what you do is at least you get now a snapshot of how is your body set up for carbs, fats, and proteins. And then we take a look at lactose and gluten, because most people actually don't inherit the lactose genes. It's about 75%. And yet we were raised in a culture of, so much dairy, which had its own bacteria way back when, so it could break itself down. Now everything's, pasteurized and neutralized. And so it just doesn't break down if you don't have the genes. So we can take a look at that. We've had people who have had terrible eczema but were raised with cheese and just didn't know that lactose might be a problem, and milk products for them cleared up all the eczema. Once we said, you know what, you got to do this for a month. You need to just give it a try to see whether this is the culprit. So we love when we can find the easy solutions for people. In the end, I mean, health is complex. But we can tell you usually if there is a DNA reason why you have an issue. So we can see if you have issues with gluten, celiac, etc. Or in many cases, people have acquired sensitivities and issues just because of the very high gluten content and the quality of our grains in North America. And so if you know that you're not compounded with a genetic issue, if you know that's the case, you can probably do something to heal your gut. If you've got a genetic issue, you're going to have to be really careful in terms of all of the foods that you eat. And what it's great in doing is because we do it in red and green with simple recommendations. It's harder to convince yourself it's not me, or it's just right now, or it's not this thing. This is your data. This is your evidence that this is your unique body, and this is your friend or not your friend. For your
I love how the layout of the presentation of the results is so user-friendly. That is unusual, because a lot of programs want to keep the results, make them complicated, so they're dependent on further follow-up with professionals, where this is yours. This is the results are easy. Yes, you have complimentary, correct me if I'm wrong, people to help you out, read the results and get a plan together. But at the same time, you've got these results in front of you, green and red. We learn green and red in in kindergarten, right? Green is go. So I love that. Let's talk about hormones, because I talk a lot about weight loss and weight goals, which are probably, I would say, the biggest complaint for most men and women after the age of 40. And it's not about calories. It's not about working out 3 hours a day. It's about your hormones and where they're wrong. And maybe we have predispositions to hormones that are out of whack, that are working against us. And how do we work with them?
Yeah. So we have a portion of the test, and we really group it together, but there's this health section that looks at detox genes, hormone genes, inflammation genes, and methylation genes. And these are really the body's background process that really support your health, your mitochondria, the cell, the energy, the ATP, et cetera. All of that is being influenced by these background processes. And so what we can see is whether you did inherit genes that have got bigger issues with detox, and therefore you need to be changing, doing things to support those areas. The same thing with hormones, especially for people dealing with infertility. Gosh, I mean, there's so many that of women that I see with infertility issues who've got very red on their ability to, eliminate the hormones from the body, but have been on birth control for 10, 20 years. And it just takes a long time if you don't have the good elimination process for that to come out. I mean, and so you need the detox and the hormone elimination, or even the metabolization. So we can see, if you have problems on synthesis, metabolization, or elimination on your hormone genes, and then you can take actions, and there's foods and there's other supports that you can do to support that. The same thing with inflammation. You can see if you're highly prone to, body inflammation, it's going to lead to chronic disease. There's foods you can take to support that. And we can also see genes that are linked into more tumor or cancer and other things. And so if you're weaker in those areas, it's just that much more incentive to say, you want to be healthy. Here's your evidence. You might not get away with as much as, the friend that seems to be able to eat everything and be fine. Here is your unique body. Here's what you need to do.
You're touching on something that I'm diving into right now, and estrogen dominance has skyrocketed, and it can be actually backed up and worsened by certain supplements that are supposed to detox, but if someone has the wrong genetic predisposition to those supplements, could actually backfire and back up the liver, which then increases the estrogen dominance. And the other thing that you touched on was birth control and young women. That is going to back up the issue, right? Back up your liver. And right now, young women, young children, I should say, are now starting to get their periods at 8 years old. And it was much later. It was more like 15, 16 years old. Before when I was younger, it was more like 13, 14 years old. But even back before that, it was even older. And so it's just getting worse and worse and worse. And these hormones are being messed up from the environment, from our food supply. And so it's really important to learn how to detox. We were told by the doctors birth control is not a problem, super healthy, stay on it as long as you can. And then it's also affecting our men in our world because these hormones are now being put into our water supplies. We're drinking it all, and you can't really escape any of it. And you have to be proactive with detox. Well, Lois, I want to make sure we have time for you to explain what happens when someone comes to you, signs up for the program, and does the swab and all of that. So can you take us through how it works?
Well, it's super simple, Sarah. So we have a swab. This is a used one that just came in, and there you just rub the inside of your cheek 10 times both sides, put it back in, put your information into the portal. This is sent without any information. We're really, really big on privacy and making sure that only you have the data, that it's safeguarded. We don't ever buy or sell any information, and that it's kept very secure. And now we also only test what we need so that you don't have to worry about what other information might be out there about you. But it's not super scary to know that you found out you have, let's say, bad carbohydrate genes. It's, again, it's wonderful information to know. So it's just a simple cheek swab. We mail you the kit, you mail it back. You can order online. We've got a promo code that we have for some of your listeners that we can talk about just after. And you get your information. It goes to our lab, fully qualified and top certifications, and you get your results in 2 to 4 weeks. Now, the results are meant to be super simple. Like, it's got the recommendations. It tells you, okay, dietary saturated fat is an issue. Here's what you need to do. But we've found that people like having the personal touch and the ability to walk through the results because everyone's unique and facing sort of a different situation in their health. So along with our Total Power product, we include a consult with a nutritionist to walk through the results, see where you're at, see what your priorities are, to start gearing you in the right direction so that you can make some changes to your health. And generally, when people do this, we test for 200 genes, 70 areas. You'll learn 5 or 10 things that are really unique about you that your body needs to be looked after to support it over its lifetime, to stay your happiest and your healthiest. And so what we're trying to do is just give you that lifetime insight into some changes that if you make, you will be working with your body versus against it. So
go ahead.
Yeah. So if people are interested, you'll have a link in your show notes. It's dnaPower.com. And the promo code is accelerated. And so if you use that, you'll get $50 off the test.
Awesome. And we forgot to touch on the mental aspect, the mental test. Can you talk about that a bit?
Yes. Probably the most important one we test for, because I was worried about it, was the APOE genes, which are related to Alzheimer's and also to cholesterol. So if you have the APOE genes, it leads to a plaquing, and it can be a plaquing in the cardiovascular or the brain. And with this huge increase in Alzheimer's, it's useful to know, I believe it's like a diabetes 3, your diet can dramatically affect whether this plaquing becomes a problem for your body. So I did my testing, discovered I don't have a problem, but discovered my kids do. So that just talks to the importance for them to be avoiding fried foods, avoiding, these bad saturated fats, and to be onto a far cleaner, healthy omega-3 diet, and to be watching exercise and brain, et cetera, over their lifetime. Because I firmly believe it doesn't matter what genes you have, you can live healthy to 100 plus. And it's just a matter of knowing what you need to work with and be more attentive to in order to stay healthy. So that's a key area. We look at concussion. The APOE genes are linked to concussion. If you have a kid with APOE genes, we pulled my kid out of cheer because they were starting to get hit in the head, and we could see that it was having a problem repairing. So you don't want to put your kids in contact sports, or you need to be aware of it if you've got this gene combination. And then we look at things like cortisol and some key markers on depression. We don't go deep into it. What we're trying to do is just give you a few key areas that you might want to look into just to make sure you're at your mental wellness in addition to your physical wellness.
You know, I'm talking a lot about how to raise healthy kids because people think, being on social media for 8 hours a day is normal. Eating all this processed food is normal, and they'll just fix their health problems when they're 20 and when they're older and the weight starts piling on. But my feeling has, you want to give your kids ownership of it, right? And how do you do that? You give them this test. You give them this book that says, this is your body. It's not mom telling you not to have fun and have the sugar. It's your own body saying, this is what your body is needing, what you want. And I can't stress enough the importance of starting kids to recognize what's good for them, because it's affecting their mental health, the depression, the anxiety, the suicide rates are through the roof. The amount of alcoholism. I've got a sophomore in high school, and her friends, I shouldn't say friends, but her age group was drinking a lot more heavily in junior high because it was during those years of a lockdown where there wasn't much to do, and it became normalized. So we are salmon swimming upstream as mothers trying to raise these healthy kids. But what better way to do it is to give them a roadblock or a
Roadmap.
thank you, and with their own DNA. So I really love this. And for all of you out there, I highly recommend this. What we're going to do is I'm going to do my own test, and then we will be coming back and revisiting the results to see what it shows. So thank you so much, Lois. I really appreciate you coming on. I will have the link for dnaPower in the show notes. You can click on it, use the coupon code accelerated for $50 off, and I highly recommend it. I can't wait to see my results. So thanks again. And thank you everybody for joining us today. If I can help you with your health issues, you can contact me directly through the website, sarahbantahealth.com. I am happy to put together a personalized protocol for you. You can follow me on Facebook and Instagram under Accelerated Health Products, and my YouTube channel, and over 100 channels under Accelerated Health Radio, including iHeartRadio, iTunes, Stitcher, Pandora, or whatever podcast platform you subscribe to. If you like what you heard today, please share this and hit the subscribe button or leave a comment below. You can also leave a comment about the group coaching that's free on Telegram. The link will be below. Join, invite your friends and family. There's no downside. I put in daily chats, daily tips, daily articles, and videos that you can learn from. You can also use coupon W4HC20 for 20% off site-wide. And remember, as you support my website, sarahbantahealth.com, I'm able to bring you this show and the amazing guests. Thanks again, Lois, and thank you everybody else. Have a great week.